My name is David, and this is David, and we're sitting here in a conservatory in Birmingham, England, and we're going to extol the virtues of a basically a handmade MIDI guitar, and it costs around 180 pounds. And we'll give, for you guitar aficionados, we'll give you a little background of how we actually got there. I am a gigging musician, and so I usually carry 3 guitars around because I do a lot of different tunings. I'm playing about 9 different tunings, and one of those guitars is a baritone guitar, and I wanted something, or a guitar, that could kind of do everything. So I looked at the new robot tuners that are out, and because of different string gauges and all, and the different tunings, we couldn't find a string gauge that fit really anything, kept breaking strings. And so we looked at making a MIDI guitar, which works with the GP10, which does all kinds of tunings. But we had to come up with something that didn't have a lot of ambient noise, so that the standard tuning didn't mingle or clash with the open tuning that we were in. So I enlisted Dave here, who has made guitars. How long have you made guitars, David?
Well, I've made and experimented with guitars for a few years now. I make sort of oddball guitars like cigar box guitars and, you know, sort of strange beings. But when David asked me about this, I suggested that if he was to source a suitable neck, then I would have a go at making the body. And this, because it was something experimental, I didn't want to go and sort of, you know, take a piece of prime mahogany and sort of risk, you know, spoiling it unnecessarily. So we decided that we'd use what was to hand initially to, you know, to see if the project worked, which was basically plywood. I had a number of sheets of different gauges of plywood about, so I said, well, we'll put something together from that. And this is basically what we came up with. The reason for the holes is, as David said, cutting down on ambient noise. So I wanted to sort of take away as much of the guitar as possible that might sort of induce a resonance, or, you know, whatever. I'd seen pictures of different guitars, you know, travel guitars, and it also had the dual capability of cutting down on the weight. So having sketched a design, you know, to sort of go along with a standard cutout for this generic neck, and drawn up the design, I made the first cutout of a piece of plywood 16 millimeters in thickness, cut the holes out. The 16 millimeters was useful in a way because the neck pocket for a guitar neck of this sort is 16-17 millimeters. So basically all it meant is I had to sort of cut the profile of the neck pocket out rather than route it out. Once I'd got the first layer done, I then glued on the second layer, which again was 16 millimeters deep, roughly cut the holes out, and then I used a router with a bearing cutter to go around and sort of copy the holes and the outlines into the second sheet. And then the third sheet was about 12 millimeters, bringing the sort of full thickness up to about 44 millimeters. And again, you know, cut the holes out, cut the profile sort of approximately, and then use the bearing cutter to finish it off. And then just rounded the edges with a round over router cutter. The bridge that we've used is just a sort of budget, you know, generic top loading 6 saddle bridge. It's mounted on a sheet of rubber, as is the pickup, so that, you know, we're sort of, although the bridge is screwed into the body and therefore obviously connected to the body in that way, We just wanted to sort of isolate as much as possible from the actual body itself.
Which he does very well.
Yes, the neck is a sort of standard bolt-on. The one thing that we did have issues with the plywood is that, you know, when you cut it and route it, you do get a fair bit of tear out in the cross graining. So we ended up, you know, having to sort of fill it and smooth it and fill it and smooth it, and then eventually painted it. And it kind of has its imperfections, but that sort of lends itself to some of the charm, dare I say, of the finished product. And then, you know, we mounted the pickup and the pickup interface, and then it was over to David to see if it worked. So while we were actually waiting, this wasn't the original neck that was ordered. That sort of took best part of 6 weeks not to get here, wasn't it? So this was the second neck that was ordered, and while we were waiting for that, David had, if you just take that one back, David had actually ordered up and put together himself this kit-built guitar, which we'd sort of figured would probably, you know, copy the same sort of routing pattern or whatever. Another friend of ours with access to an industrial router cut these out. And then we had to spend a little bit of time with the setup of this one because of issues with the neck truss rod and the nut and the string height and one or two other things. But after David had used the blue guitar for a while, he gave it back to me and asked if I could put some comfort curves for the forearm and the tummy cuts. And while I was doing that, I took the opportunity to give this one a sort of general overhaul and full setup, where it actually sort of came in and you know, was far more successful in its setup then. So
what kind of stain then did we use on this?
Oh, this is just a little bit of teak oil. Okay. Danish oil, just to give it a little bit of a luster and colour in the sort of harsh white maple of the neck. And there we are. So both guitars, surprisingly enough, came in at around the figure of £180. This one, because the kit was £80 for the basic guitar and £100 for the pickup. The blue guitar, I mean, we said I think it was
35 for the neck.
Yeah, £35 for the neck, £100 for the pickup, £12 for the bridge, £12, £15 for the tuners, and then, you know, the plywood wasn't a lot at all because it was already in my garage, and then probably £15 for the paint to paint it. So there we have it, and that's the story of how these two guitars sort of came into being.
So do you fancy making another one?
Well, I always kid David that I sort of reserve visitation rights for these two, but as you might have noticed, David is a lefty, so they're of absolutely no sort of practical use to me at all.
That's it.
But it might be nice, you know, to sort of do another one of these, but this time, you know, to actually sort of source some, you know, better bit of wood for the body or something like that. But as I say, this one, you know, has developed a bit of a rustic charm of its own. So in a way, it would be a pity to break it up and, you know, sort of see it as anything different or other than what it is. Yeah.
So if you can't afford a £1,000 Strat with a ready-made GK3 in it, then we encourage you to try one of these.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that.
Thanks for watching.